Everyone's favorite Oscar-nominated effects ace, Harrison Ellenshaw, who is also known around here as the mayor of Passamaquoddy due to his tenure on the film Pete's Dragon that you may remember, starring my buddy Jeff Conaway, by the way, rest in
Please,
peace.
please, you know,
Other
save your
accolades, other
save your
accolades.
your your questions for later on.
Yeah. Well, hold up.
Passamaquoddy.
Everyone slow down on the Pete's Dragon. What's interesting about Pete's Dragon, though, and we'll get to this in a minute, is you were working days on Pete's Dragon and nights on Star Wars, thinking the
And I
little
thought
space
Pete's
movie.
Dragon would be the big hit.
Yeah, this dragon movie's gonna kill it. This musical with Helen
Yeah,
Reddy's gonna murder it.
this
This
this Star Wars
Mickey,
thing.
Hi. Hey. Hey, you look terrible. Hey. Your friends turned green. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was a dragon. Dragon!
Elliot, didn't I tell you to?
Just there's a
Mickey Rooney as a lighthouse keeper is gonna bury these idiots blowing up
and
a Death Star. What?
Helen not so ready.
It's amazing that you did actually split time between the two movies, and Disney let you do that. And I know you also bounced to Empire Strikes Back, but you wouldn't do Return of the Jedi because you didn't believe in the Ewoks. However, no, actually, because of Tron. But I know you do cite the Ewok thing quite a
Oh,
bit.
I'm such a snot.
Oh, all right. Anyway, like we were talking about a moment ago before we bounced off into the world of crazy Tron, other great movies. Your dad was legendary Imagineer Peter Ellenshaw, who worked on
Nope, not an
20,000 Leagues.
Imagineer. Sorry, if
No,
I may interrupt. No, he didn't work at
at WED.
WDI or whatever that's called. He was
Yeah.
not an Imagineer. He went to work for Disney before there was even Imagineers. So he did multiple things.
Is that why some studio guys felt that that was kind of a bullshit title? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that sounds
the the people who you had to be multi-talented to work for
right.
Walt Disney. You had to be able to understand what movies were about and that rides, attractions were about.
Mhm.
And if you could go from one to the other while still balancing both, Mr. Disney liked you. Later on, the whatever after Walt had died, or maybe there was a transition in between. It was, oh, there should be Imagineers.
Yeah.
Hell was that? Are they artists? No, they imagine with their
They
ears. It's kind of
they
like Mickey.
yes, taking the art of imagination and engineering it into reality. I get it. I also get that. I'm with you. I think the studio guys were really where it was at.
Yeah, they were the ones that were doing. My father worked on so many things. He worked on Satellite View of America, which
Right.
would these were space fillers for Disneyland. While Walt was trying to keep everything, juggling everything, he said, "Okay, what do you got? How about Satellite View of America? Well, what does that mean? That means we'll be on a moving walkway, and we'll see the United States of America, and it will change colors as it goes from daylight to
Was
nighttime."
it in your experience? I know you're famous for being the kid that almost killed Walt Disney. We'll get into that story in a bit.
Well,
I have a photo. I have
I'm
a photo,
sorry, I can't discuss that right now.
but we can. But in your experience, was it a genuine back and forth of ideas, or was it one where Walt just sit back and listen to a barrage of pitches, or did Walt go in and issue a barrage of like, you know, marching orders, or was it a combination of all of it?
It was this combination. This was mutual trust.
Right.
So if my father didn't like the idea, he would have to come up with an option
Right.
and then tread very carefully and say, Walt, I think we can do something a little bit different that might be better. And Walt liked that because it wasn't
Hmm.
about we need to think of, maybe we'll get a weatherman in here to run the company after you're gone. And it was so,
Do you think, well, on that note, do you think Walt ever in his wildest imagination thought a former weatherman, we're talking about Bob Iger, would be running this juggernaut? Did you ever think that played into? No, no, it
one of
didn't.
the things about Walt Disney is that he never anointed a successor.
Yeah,
He kind of thought he'd live forever and I'll create something so magical that any idiot can come along and do it and keep going. He didn't realize that idiots want to take charge and want to change things.
right. So, do you think he never seriously gave it any thought, or do you think he couldn't find anyone who had his sense of magic? Why do you think? I mean, he
He
must have
was,
had those conversations because he was
well,
he'd been smoking since World War I, and the reality sets in. So, do you think he always was planning to hand it off to Miller or Roy or?
yeah, I think it was well, Roy will take care of it, and then Ron Miller will take care of it. But I don't want to have to deal with that
Mm.
because I'll be gone. You could say that's selfish, but he was too busy to look at the new chain of command. And he was all the thing about Walt Disney that absolutely blew me away is that he had a curiosity.
Yes.
He was curious about everything. He was curious about space and he was curious. So he had all these shows. And there's this one picture of Walt Disney at Disneyland, and he's looking down at Main Street at a worker who is working on the tracks for the trolley.
Right. Right.
And that's Walt. He's going, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm putting in asphalt here. Well, how often does that have to happen? Do you think there could be a better way? And that was what made him great.
They come out of darkness, sometimes with thunder, sometimes with lightning. Their presence means death. The prison master was afraid of him. The guards were afraid of him. The town was afraid of him. Lucifer is coming for you. Rest easy, Jack Carr said in a low tone. You're in the final 30 seconds of your life. No quarter. No quarter. Kill all masters. Coming soon.
So, in conjunction with that, the idea that the company is now really its blueprint is we buy things or we buy IPs and we exploit the hell out of it. You're going to have a Marvel movie every 3 to 6 months. You're going to have a Star Wars product every whatever. And it used to be that Disney, their initial blueprint was we're going to do things, we're going to have a Frontierland and we're going to do projects based on Davy Crockett and the Alamo and
Yes.
real historical. Like the movies that Walt Disney introduced in his TV show were like Johnny Tremaine,
Yeah.
Scarecrow of Romney Marsh.
Wow.
Like,
Memory.
but really interesting characters out of history. It seemed to be what he really liked at Johnny Appleseed, you know.
Well,
Um,
yeah, Walt felt that if you wanted to educate people, first you had to entertain them.
right, right,
And it wasn't just okay, in 1844, blah, 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 blah. No, show it, don't say it.
yeah. But it used to be, in a sense, they generated their own roster of movies and shows that were Disney, a Disney brand. I don't think they do that anymore. It doesn't seem like they do.
Well, they
Like
don't know
now,
how to do it.
right?
So let's just look at this as a monopoly game. Let's buy up as many properties as we can, and hopefully we don't go bankrupt. Well, should we buy properties that are worthwhile? No, that's silly. Just
It
do
does.
a plan.
It does feel overextended. It feels like there's some far-reaching. The Fox. Some insiders say that they pay too much for Fox, and that part of that was
Well,
industrial sabotage by other people trying to run the price up, who wanted to see maybe Disney walk the plank on it. But there is a library there. There are products there.
yeah.
The turnaround is forthcoming, but there's like I look about like I wasn't a huge Disney fan, but I miss when Disney did Disney stuff. And Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, like he filled that space
Yeah.
in the industry. Like I'm the animation. Well, now everyone's got an animated division,
Well,
but he was like the king of it.
he was the organizer. He was the person that had, if you will, good taste.
Right.
And my father said one time to him about a show that was coming out, and my father said to Walt, "This is so corny. I mean, it's just, you know."
Right.
And Walt said to my father, "Yeah, but it's good corn."
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
there's truth to it, but I also love the fact that he did a version of like Rob Roy. You
Oh,
know, yeah, with Richard Todd, a World War II hero, much like your father, who was with the RAF. So it's interesting that like Disney has forgotten that they themselves used to create like original works. It
well,
feels like.
yeah, original. What's original? Look, there's fantasy, there's a Brothers Grimm.
Mm.
Every story has already been told, but it's how you tell it.
Do you really believe that? You believe every story's been told?
Well, yeah, I've got one coming by, but you'll have to wait.
I don't know.
I'm
I feel like there's still like
oversimplifying it
I know.
because that's what we want to know. We want to see, uh, uh, the bad guy, and we want to see the good guy, and we want to see that because it reaffirms that our lives have some degree of meaning.
Mm.
And we're at a place right now, unfortunately, I don't want to get political, where we have been, as just a regular person, so minimalized, so canceled that we've kind of given up hope. And you can't do that to people because humans are unique.
Fess Parker seemed to privately blame Walt Disney for ruining his career.
That's bullshit.
this wall. Let's swing the camera. Come on. Change, strap iron, evade it. Fire in the hole!
Give one for Davy.
Storybooks tell they were all cut low, but the truth of it is, this just ain't so. Their spirits will live and their legends grow, as long as we remember the Alamo.
I believe it's bullshit too, but why do you think he felt that way? Do you think it was because
He didn't feel that way. Walt would hire actors and then eventually say, okay, we're done. We've told the story. Here's your residual check, and you're getting gajillions for it. And then Fess, that I really liked him, decided I'm kind of bored, so I'm going to do more of what I was doing. But we'll call it Daniel Boone. Okay, well, good for you.
No, I know what you're saying there, that Fess Parker took the roles, but he did say that he was, when Walt Disney was finished with him, he wasn't offered much in the way of a dynamic. Welcome to Hollywood, right? A lot of people have had that challenge, and he did buy into a nice hotel in Santa Barbara, as we all know, not too far from us.
Well, that's another story.
It is, but
I don't see that as a big deal. And if Fess felt that way, that's fine. But there was no, as far as I know, and I knew Fess Parker pretty well, so did my father.
yeah.
And it's easy to say, oh, Walt abandoned me or whatever that's get over it. Look, you're living the life. Because of Davy Crockett and because of Daniel Boone. So you can't be too critical of success. If you're critical of your own success, then you're.
Do you think that's one of the real reasons people know the names Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone? I mean, if you're not well read in history, do you think that the Disney products are really where those people got introduced into like Americana culture?
Look, we don't know what really went on at the Alamo. What do we have? We have written stuff, but did this happen or this happen? Because storytelling at the time was sometimes written down, but you write down and you give it a certain twist. You
So
don't write down about the Saracens and invading you let's make a musical out of this or that. It's
hold up.
retelling the story.
Let me make a note. First of all, Alamo the musical, way overdue. Let me write that one down. So are you implying that, like some historians have implied, that not everyone was killed in the fight, that some were killed maybe later the next day as prisoners, and one of them may have been Davy Crockett? That Crockett
Oh,
was actually known enough to the Mexicans to be taken alive and have a chance to be spared? That's a historical take. It's not the historical take, but it is a
oh,
take by some PhDs.
but
What do you think?
does it matter?
Fuck yeah, it matters. We're talking about a historical battle. It's
Oh, so
very
you have a
interesting.
thing against Mexicans?
Yeah, that's where I was going. Thank God we got to the root of it.
Look,
I
it's,
was just about to say, no, I'm just saying that you just said something very interesting, which is, we don't know what really happened at the Alamo, and we don't. In fact, some of the primary accounts history is based on come from like people on the Mexican side who documented things such as they witnessed. All right, so I'm giving you a headache. You want to talk about something else? You want to talk about fucking dragons and shit?
no, I'm fine. I like this kind of discourse,
No,
but
you
at
don't.
the
You're picking
same
on me. You
time,
are literally making fun of me. You just accused me of not
I'm
liking
not making,
Mexicans.
oh, jeez.
Hold
You can
on.
make fun of me all you
Don't
want.
cancel
You
me.
always do that.
Don't cancel me over this.
Hello, we're the Fab Four. He's Gavin. And he's Hardy, and we're both two people from the Fab Four. Help us find a cure for NMOSD and with it, cancer. Go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation today and donate. Thank you very much.
Let me get back to what started this off. So the rumors that Fess Parker was disappointed in Walt are really sort of unfounded, and that's basically BS.
That's not true.
Not true. He was good in those roles. I have to admit, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, you spent a lot of time with Fess Parker, did you?
Yeah. I,
Now today,
not to brag, but
but
Fess
you
and
will, you
Parker
will.
were very good friends.
Yeah, I'd
And
heard that. I'd heard that.
it was I knew Fess Parker. I knew him as Davy Crockett. I also knew him as a very generous person. And he liked to play tennis. I like to play tennis. We go play tennis on his private court where he's living. And one day he said to me, he said, "What are you doing with that racket?" I said, "Well, he goes, here, try this one. Keep it." And
Nice.
so that generosity was sincere.
Very cool.
And he was cool. And he knew that, he's just this kid from Texas that got fortunate. Now
Mm.
he earned his way because he had acted in things and he had provided for his family. And he wasn't ashamed of that. And he so when he went on to do Daniel Boone, it was kind of to keep the money coming in.
Mm.
Some people said you should have walked away. Why did you do that? Well, so what?
Look, I can't be the judge. He knows his situation with his mortgage and whatnot and what he should be doing and shouldn't be. And I don't think doing Daniel Boone is a bad call.
No.
And there was a lot of great actors that stepped in and out of those historical roles for Disney, including Leslie Nielsen, who did the Swamp Fox, Francis Marion. And I know you're getting ready to pull the plug on the Zoom. You pull your
No,
computer out of the wall.
I'm very open
And
and understanding, even though you're wrong.
am I wrong about that? I thought Leslie
No.
didn't Leslie.
Which one are we discussing? Texas John Slaughter?
No, 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 no. Leslie Nielsen wasn't he? Didn't he play Francis Marion for Walt?
I don't know. I can't
Okay,
remember.
so we don't know that I'm wrong on that. So we're gonna have to circle back.
It's not about wrong or right. It's about recollections.
Right, right there you go. Concepts of
It's
history.
about concept. It's way
Con-
up.
concepts. We have concepts of history. Let's go back to the very beginning. You walked Disneyland before it opened.
Yep.
Your father had worked with Walt. He had done some landmark projects. Walt gave you a personal tour of the railroad, which is where you almost killed him. And you had a chance to see
That's an exaggeration. Almost wounded him.
There's different takes on the story, depending who you talk to. But Walt was in bad shape after giving you that tour. But away from that,
people will believe you, and then I'll have to defend the fact that I was not a killer of Walt Disney.
No, if he had died, then you'd be known as the kid who had killed Walt Disney. But since he lived, you're not a killer. But you had a chance to kind of process Disneyland before it was like this thing for everyone else. You remember those days, getting a tour of it as a very young kid?
It was overused word. It was magical.
Yeah.
Because Walt was a dreamer, and he surrounded himself with people whose abilities he really admired.
Right.
And so my father happened to be one of those. John Hench, it's a long list. And these were people that shared the vision and occasionally would, maybe leave and go off and to do something else, which didn't necessarily please Walt, but it was something he had to get used to, and he did.
Yeah.
And the fact that he loved railroads, and he loved certain things from his childhood, and he also was very a great believer in family and doing the right thing. And I know that sounds corny because he's been attacked now that he's gone by so many people. And no, he was not an anti-Semite. Ask the Sherman brothers about that. No.
Why would I ask them? Why would they be able to have the answer on that? Do they know something?
Of the Jewish faith.
Okay.
Yeah. He was not a racist. He hired people of color. He was blind to all that stuff. Norman, who was one of the first animators.
Floyd Norman?
Who?
Are you talking about Floyd Norman?
Yeah, I think so. And so you can criticize all you want, but let's face it, the Siamese cats.
Yeah.
We are Siamese. And you could say, oh, well, that's racist. Okay. Are we going to pick at every single thing that's really not harming anybody? I don't know anybody who has seen that portion of Lady and the Tramp who has been, mind has, blown apart.
Well, speak for yourself on that. After I saw it, I was a different human being, but we'll save that for another day. I'm kidding, of course. I know what your angle is here, and I respect what you're saying. Getting back to who he was, by the way, can I sidebar real quick? Was it you that told me the Ward Kimball story about its F for fucked up or something? What? Or S for shit? Was that you who said the story about like was it Ward Kimball that had like showed Walt Disney something and said, "Hey Walt, I got the," and he somehow said like it's such and such, such and such, and Walt's response was no, it's S for shit or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, Ward Kimball was a character
Hmm.
that in some of the Nine Old Men or whatever it was
Right.
would say, or critics would say, if Ward Kimball was on fire, I wouldn't piss on him to put out the fire. Uh,
Why?
Look, these
Why?
were these were kids in the sandbox,
Hmm.
and they were unfiltered in a lot of ways, but it wasn't. Sounds nasty. It wasn't nasty. It was like, we're in this together. Come on, we'll find a way. And Walt would set the bar pretty high. And a lot of people say, oh, there's no way. You're not going to get Disneyland done in this many days. And everybody kind of go, watch, hold my beer. And I just thought that Walt Disney deserves every every accolade that we can find.
Right.
Yeah, the Sherman brothers. Yeah, okay. So they were the Jewish faith, but Walt didn't give a shit.
Well,
He
nobody
didn't
should.
care.
Nobody should, right?
And nobody, it was, can you bring the good stuff? And I don't care your color, your race, your creed, blah, blah, blah. Do the right thing and make it happen. And you can't get better than that. And that's why he was the leader. That's why he was Walt.
Yeah. So
I'm
when
sorry,
you,
Bob Iger.
sorry about what?
I said, I'm sorry, Bob Iger.
You really
Yeah.
don't like Bob Iger. You,
Well, he's a phony. I can't find a successor, so I'll have to do two jobs, but give me another $10 million to do. I mean, knock it off.
so who would you pick? Who would you pick to replace him?
The guy down the street that's sweeping the curbs. You
Wow.
don't have to be a genius to take care of a brand. You can, call your mother and say, it's a hard question, but blah, blah, blah. And maybe it's time to just retire Disneyland. And I say that with a heavy heart. But
Really?
it's been so marginalized. We've got the Disney cruise ships. So, well, what are they? Oh, well, they're expensive. Okay. Well, and what do we get? Oh, we get some people who dress up like Goofy and come around and, scare kids and say, here's a breakfast because Goofy is a goofy breakfast. It's kind of silly, but I'm okay with it as long as you don't try to force it into the legacy.
Okay. Going back to the beginning, though, when we were talking about the early days at Disneyland. Um, so when you first walked that place, when you walked Disneyland up Main Street for the first time, your dad's there, Walt's there, right? Walt's showing you?
Yeah, it happened to be on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So I go down there with my father, and Walt it might have been a Saturday because nobody, I don't know, whatever. The place was pretty empty. And I'm in awe. This is like,
Yeah.
wow, this is cool. And my father he would point out things, and this is going to be this, and this is going to be this. And I think I was with my father's sister, my aunt, and of course my mother. And there seemed to be something very special about it. And I don't mean to be all kind of ethereal, but you kind of knew this was pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet.
And there was Main Street, and there was Frontierland, there was Tomorrowland, and there was I can't what were the three? Frontierland,
Fantasyland, yeah.
Tomorrowland, and
Adventureland.
Knott's Berry Farm.
At Knott's Berry Farm, up the street.
A crazy idea.
Right.
It was a theme park for adults and for children. And it was Walt's idea when he would take his he would take his two children to the carousel at Griffith Park. And he had this thought, why don't we build a theme park for both adults and children?
So what was the first ride you went on?
Well, I would go on weekends. I would go with my father to the studio. And this was before there was WED or all that stuff. And I remember getting in this car, which was a prototype for an Autopia. And I thought, oh, geez, what do I push? and going around the back lot. And then there was another prototype, which was the Peter Pan ride. And so you would get in this, but there was not much around it. And it would go around, and then it would go, boom, and you go down. And then you come out. It was so perfectly timed that everything about it, when it finally came out, was genius.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. How can you not love all that, stuff with it going through the doors at the end and coming out the end? And I was so fortunate because I worked at Disneyland. I was a ride operator.
Yeah, right.
I was not a frickin' cast member.
Hold up. All right, hold on. Before I stoke the animosity there, I know you worked on the Skyway, which I miss.
I did.
And you were on the Swiss Chateau side, I believe, in your Lederhosen.
I was on the Fantasyland side.
Yeah, you were a member of the Austrian resistance, and you had like the Lederhosen uniforms.
No, that's a myth, but we'll stick with it.
Well, no, is it the Matterhorn that wears the Lederhosen? Anyway.
No.
But you liked working there, right? You enjoyed it.
I loved it because as shy as I was, and I was pretty shy, I felt important. I felt part of the fantasy that people were experiencing. And I have to admit, the Skyway was a little bit difficult because we had a thing called the spitters. So, and especially on grad nights, these young gentlemen who were not too bright, who couldn't understand the concept that the Skyway would go through the Matterhorn and into Tomorrowland.
Right.
So they thought, oh, this is great. let's just lean over and spit on
Ugh,
people.
incredibly tacky.
And it was like,
Embarrassing.
no, no, no. So we had this thing called a telephone that spoke to the other side.
Oh,
And we'd
nice.
say spitters in 245, or they would say the same thing to us. And those poor ignorant souls would get out of the buckets and we'd say, go over there and wait. Now, if they wanted to, they could run away. But most of them were so terrified, they would
Really?
sit. Oh, God, it's like, there was a lot of whining. And we would make it as difficult as possible. And we would go over and say, look, you don't spit, you don't do that. And if we catch you again, you're out of here for the
Right.
rest of your life. And they go, so, but every now and then they would just bolt before we gave them the thing. But guess what? It's easy to call security and go, okay, there's probably a 12-year-old wearing a Mickey Mouse hat and this, that,
That
and
says
other.
Brian on it.
And they would get busted.
Yeah.
And they were not happy. And it was like, hey, sorry, but there's
How long did
something bigger than you.
Right. Well, that's terribly bad behavior. How long did you work there?
Well, I was a ride operator for 2 summers. And
Were you in high school at the time? You hadn't worked at the studio yet, so were you young?
I was probably I think I was in college.
Was this before you went to Vietnam?
I never went to Vietnam.
Yes, you did.
Yes, it was before I went to Vietnam.
Before you went to Vietnam. So you came back from Vietnam, and that would start the studio years for you, right?
I came back from Vietnam and I couldn't find a job. And I was pretty pissed off because, hey, sorry. I served my country, and now you got people out in the streets protesting the war.
And you got a Purple Heart.
No, I did not get a Purple
No, you didn't.
Heart.
You didn't get a Purple Heart for the day
No,
the
I
fan
didn't
blade
get a
struck you in the
Purple
skull.
Heart. The whole
All right, that story for another day.
putting
but-
my head in the fan has been.
All right. Listen, man, it's a tough job being
You
in this
have to
man's
get a
Navy.
Purple Heart if you're in combat.
I thought you were in combat when that happened. No? Okay, never mind.
Well, but the point is, get an injury from the bad people that were shooting at you, that gets you a Purple Heart. Sticking your head in a fan does not get you a
I was making a joke based on the injury. You're really now downplaying it. But anyway, we'll circle back to your days on the St. Paul. So you worked two summers as a ride operator while you were in college and loved it.
Up to what?
Huh?
No, say that again. Sorry.
You worked two years as a ride operator.
Oh, the ride operator thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was summers.
Was it both summers on the Skyway?
No, originally I was a ride operator on the Snow White ride
Oh yeah, that's good.
attraction.
The attraction. Didn't you work on Tom Sawyer's Island?
No, I didn't. No, that was for the cool guys, the cool, college guys including John Lasseter, who worked the Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
I wanted to work the Jungle Cruise, but I tried out, and it's like, next.
What about I thought you did some cave painting. on Tom Sawyer's Island at a time during a
That
certain
was my
time.
father who
Yeah.
did the cave painting.
Tom Nab. Did you know Tom Nab? He was Tom Sawyer during those days. Do you know Tom Nab?
Who?
Do you know Tom Nab? Nabbe? He was Tom Sawyer. Once upon a time, hired by Walt, I guess. Anyway, forget it.
Oh, well,
Everyone's got a story.
yeah, some of which are true. Others, like
Yeah.
mine, are embellished.
Yeah. Well, look, embellished or not, they're entertaining to hear. So you get the job at the studio. Now, was that? Did your father work it for you, and where did you start there?
Well, so getting out of the Navy, I thought it'd be a slam dunk. Uh, I had majored in psychology, and I knew that I could go to work at a personnel office somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I went around to all sorts of stuff. And at one point, I came into contact with somebody who I had gone to school with. So he had dodged the draft, and he was now in charge of human resources for his own company.
All right.
And I thought, this is a slam dunk. I went in there and said, "Hi, remember me?" He goes, "Mm." And I said, "What's your experience?" Blah, blah, blah. And, I mentioned that I had actually served my country. He had not served his country.
Yeah.
And he was not impressed. And he said, kind of, go away. We have other fish to fry here, buddy boy.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're saying.
It takes a lot of courage to dodge the draft.
So eventually,
It takes guts.
I was not happy. But eventually, my father took pity on me and said, "Well, there's a position open at Disney working for Alan Maley. And Alan can't find anybody who wants to be a matte artist." Because he goes to schools and the students would say, "Why should I want to paint like a photograph? I'm ready to do my own thing." So I'm kind of going.
Yeah, there you go.
So my father said, "Give it 6 months." Well, what else? Whatever. And Alan took me under his wing. Rest is history.
Now, how was that working for Alan?
I just so fortunate because I was kind of an ambitious person, and it wasn't just about painting matte shots. It was
Right.
about visual effects, and it was about how do you put two elements together and make them look right. And it was everything from camera, lens choice, this, that, and the other thing. And it was overwhelming, but I just felt, wow, I've got the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, and you ran with it.
I ran with it. And then this guy, well, the first big break I got was I was working at Disney, and then I got a call from the producer of Man Who Fell to Earth. And they said, we need somebody to come and do visual effects. And I said, hold on. So I went to my boss at Disney, and he said, yeah, fine, take it. But don't forget, you still have stuff to do here. I got it. And I worked on Man Who Fell to Earth, directed by Nicholas Roeg, starring David Bowie. And it was, let's just say, it was fraught with a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
They never showed up on time. There would be partying every night, smoking a lot of doobies and doing a lot of snorting. And I just was like, oh, how are we ever going to get this done?
Well, Bowie famously said he doesn't even remember making it.
Yes, he doesn't remember. And I can't blame him because, he kind of showed up and, yeah. And so.
But how were you splitting time on that?
I-
Were you on location for Man Who Fell to Earth? Because that was done in Arizona or something.
New Mexico.
So the relation.
So I go to New Mexico and then I come back to California, and I was just kind of flip-flopping between the two.
Oh.
And it worked out. And I will never regret it.
No, I know you won't. Now, Nick Roeg, you like working with Nick?
Look, he done some, this. He done some interesting films.
Well, anytime anyone says interesting with air quotes, the story's about to be hilarious.
But who was I to criticize?
Right.
I wasn't. I just loved being part of the process.
Yeah, me too.
And going, flying out to New Mexico and sitting around. It was a whole new thing because we go to location and we'd be waiting. Well, why are we waiting? This was so unlike Disney. Well, Nick had a nice life yesterday, and he and what's her name? God.
Candy Clark.
Who?
Candy Clark.
Candy Clark and
legend.
The other guy had partied their hearts out and didn't want to come to location. And coming from Disney, this is not right.
Right.
But the British crew and everybody else goes, okay, break for lunch. Okay, we're back. We're back for lunch. Okay. Because they were getting paid. And I was thinking, this is not Disney. And I came to kind of accept it and thought, okay. But by the way, I got to get back on a plane and go back to work on Pete's Dragon or whatever it was.
Hold up. Let's not disrespect Pete's Dragon in the conversation here.
So I didn't mind. I just loved being part of the process.
Yeah, listen, man, and a lot of kids loved the adventures in Passamaquoddy. They loved drunk lighthouse keeper Mickey Rooney, who I saw once at a Casa Vega bench, desperate to be rescued from, I guess, his wife, because, there was those allegations that she was beating him at home, but allegedly. And he just looked, when I saw him, I was like, wait a minute, aren't you the guy from the Black Stallion? And he was just like, help. Anyway, but look, we loved him as the lighthouse keeper. Helen Reddy, Jeff Conaway, the legends.
Back on it, as you know, working on Big Wednesday with your your friend, the guy that had the guns,
Yeah, John Milius.
John Milius.
The guy who had the guns. It's so funny. That's how everybody knows him.
And
Never mind.
I had nothing against it because he supported me.
Yeah.
Even though when I went into his office, there would be an AK-47 sitting on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And what's funny is he would tell you, I actually got this from the captain of the St. Paul. Some idiot turned it over to him and he gave it to me. And you'd be like, that's my AK-47. That story you can find in our archive somewhere. But anyway, so when was Big Wednesday right after Man Who Fell to Earth?
Good swell.
It's about swell.
Bear called it.
Yeah.
Jesus, it's outrageous.
That's just the lemon next to the pie.
What?
I said that's the lemon next to the pie. That's nothing. It's gonna get bigger.
Came up this morning, just started pumping, man. Sets of 6 and 8. It's gotta be 10 feet.
Must be more now. Must be more like 15.
Big Wednesday was that Gary Busey, as my son would call him.
Oh, no, not just swim. Your son, my friend.
Couldn't swim. So we're constantly going, okay, and action. And they'd go out and William Catt and the other guy would, put their surfboards down and Gary's still running and then he stopped.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut.
Cut right before we get past the knee-deep water.
Bill Catt, yeah.
You know who else was in that? It was he's now a director, Perry Lang, who was based at Warner Brothers with me. He's actually in the opening of the film, and that's who's bored Busey basically snags to get Matt Johnson back in the water. I love that movie. That movie's what got me into surfing as a kid. Well, obviously, growing up in Laguna Beach, you're going to get into surfing anyway, but that was one of the ones, that was one of the moments.
It was a cool movie.
It was.
It was a reflection of the times.
Yeah. Oh, it really
nobody
does.
wanted to go into the service, and I just kind of was along for the ride.
Right, right. That scene where they report to the induction office.
Yeah.
And they all have their different shtick they're going to lay out for the man.
This is your induction visit. Now, if you pass today, you will be a member of the United States Army. I hope you brought your toothbrushes.
Gross.
Now, on your application, I want you to include any and all physical defects you may have. I want you to include histories of operations, diseases, or mental illnesses. Now, from here, you will follow the yellow line. It says here that you're a homosexual.
I'm not going to grade anything.
Well, are you a homosexual?
Well, I guess I am. I wrote it down. Homosexual tendencies. Yes, yes.
Well, you just gonna love it in the United States Army. There's lots of men there. And they get real close in foxholes and tanks. And in combat. Get him out here and process him in the Marine Corps.
If you send me to Vietnam, I'll just die.
Stand down here, please. Sit down. Now let's see you walk on. Just take a step. Sorry, I'll help you. Can you walk on it? Yeah, that's all right. Have take a step. Can you walk on?
I can't make it!
Orderly.
Oh!
Get this man out of here, please. Just follow the yellow line, please.
I like one more cigarette.
Go ahead.
I see here they call you a masochist. I like pain.
Could you be specific what kind of pain you like?
Any kind of pain.
Okay.
Let's see. I like fights. I've dove through windows. I've eaten light bulbs. I like sharks. Any kind of blood. If you gave me a gun, I'd shoot you in the face just to see what it looked like when the bullet.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
Well, did you have any serious problems as a kid? I mean, did your mama beat up on you?
No.
Your father?
No.
Anybody like that?
Nope. Nope.
Did you have girlfriends? Sure.
You picking on me?
No. Why should I? Are you afraid to serve in the United States Army?
Why are you picking on me?
Why would I do that? Now, let me ask you this question. Do you have any friends?
Why are you picking on me?
Get up and sit
You're
down!
trying to pick on me!
Sit down!
Believe it, I had it. 10 minutes. I don't believe
Cat's going in and he goes like full special forces. But the movie has a lot of heart. You can tell the movie meant something to Milius. All his movies meant something to him, but that one seems to be the most personal of all the films. And I'll tell you my Gary Busey moment, right? We had him attached to a movie when I was at Warner Brothers, and I'm down at Duke's in Malibu one morning having brunch with my wife. And she goes, "You got to take me up to meet Gary Busey. I know he lives right up the street. I want to meet him. I'm like, all right. So I call him. Gary, my wife and I are up the street. we'll just want to say hello real. Well, come on up. You know which one it is. And it's the house. He always leaves his front door open. But the reason he leaves his front door open is so you can walk down this entryway hallway to his living room that goes off to the left and right in different rooms. And he can jump down and surprise you at some point like Kato from the fucking Pink Panther. So he would be up on his like dresser waiting to jump and pounce on you. So I went up there with my wife and daughter, and I had to like send in a warning saying, "Hey, I got a young kid here." And he literally like climbed off he like peeked around the corner and he's like, "Oh, okay." And he climbs off his furniture and gets down. And it was like, welcome to Gary Busey's house. There you go.
It was such a great ride because these were people who were so much characters.
Yeah.
And if they were talented, so be it. If they weren't talented, then they weren't there.
Well, he was riding off of Buddy Holly's story, right? That was...
yeah, and then...
That was probably the casting. Well, I think Jan Michael Vincent had done The Mechanic.
Milius had done the...
Wind and the Lion.
The which?
He had done The Wind and the Lion.
Yeah,
and Dillinger.
Which
Dillinger.
Was obviously, you know, a retelling of the Gestapo.
Yeah, so...
It was a good movie. You can't deny that. It was a good movie.
So, yeah, Bill Daly loves that film. I'm not as much of a fan of it as he is. I love Dillinger. And
oh wow.
I loved Warren Oates, especially because he based one of his characters after a technical study after my grandfather in Blue Thunder. So, but I think Milius is a great credit at the time. And I know I think the movie's been relitigated since. I've always loved it, but people have come around to that film. I don't think at the time and Milius makes a cameo in it. You know that, right? Milius appears in it. He like tries to sell him marijuana on like the streets of Mexico or something. Some Milius moment, you know? He's some shit, you know, like the kind of he gave Ron Cobb a moment too in Conan the Barbarian. Milius also, he would do that. He would say that to me in the office too. He's like, "We're going to do this movie called Manila John," which was on John Basilone. He's like, "I have a moment for you. I want you to do," and I'm like, "Man, I work in the mailroom, bro. Like I'm not qualified, but of course I'll do it because any pay is a step up." But fun stories, man.
Oh God!
Such a great credit for you. That's like a Hallmark TCM movie.
We're so fortunate because we get caught up in the insanity.
Yeah.
And we keep stepping back and going, I can't make sense of it. All right, get up, go to work. You know, figure it out, make it work. And I will always be thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I've worked on some real dogs.
Hey, hold up. We agreed we wouldn't talk about Watcher in the Woods tonight.
Watcher in the Woods, or
hold up.
Somebody called Watcher in the Woodpile.
Well, we didn't know what it was going to be called because the studio had to run a contest for all employees to enter to find a title. True story. True story. The security guard could throw in a title. The custodial team could throw in a title.
New ending.
The guys at the construction mill could throw in their title options to be considered. And I don't know what you won if you got the title straight, but you had a shot at it. And then they settled on Watcher in the Woods.
Yeah. And again, right place, right time.
Right. It's karaoke night, my friend. I know you got to go.
All right. We're going to go sing karaoke. And
that's right. I know you're lining up all your karaoke favorites, which probably includes a little REO Speedwagon, some Toto. What other yacht rock favorites have you got in store for tonight's lineup? Going to be singing some. Why don't you sing some Bowie out of
Beach Boys, a little Four Seasons.
Dude, why don't you sing a little Bowie in honor of your days and introduce it that way?
Should.
Go. Listen.
I'm so out of tune. so it doesn't matter.
No, take center stage, take the mic and be like, look, everyone.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I worked with Bowie. Google me. But this one is for you, David.
Just want to let you know, everybody's going to know, shut up.
Here he goes again.
What a jerk. What a self-centered.
This guy keeps telling us to Google him. What the fuck? The only thing that comes up is his prison record. What the fuck? Anyway, never mind, brother. We love you. Hey, let's do this in a day or two. You get to karaoke and we'll circle back, man. We've missed you.
Miss you too. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi, this is comedian magician Justin Rivera from America's Got Talent and Comedy Central. Please help me find a cure for NMOSD. And with it, we can also cure cancer. Go to the Guthrie Foundation and donate today.